St. Kitts and Nevis. The Christena disaster was a ferry boat shipwreck with 233 casualties that occurred on August 1, 1970 between the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. The ferry was used to shuttle passengers for 11 years before tragedy struck on August 1, 1970. MV Christena was a 160-foot, government-owned and operated ferry boat, which for the previous 11 years had worked the 12-mile route between Basseterre, the capital of the island of St. Kitts, and Charlestown, the capital of the island of Nevis. Christena had been built between 1958 to 1959 by Sprostons Ltd in Georgetown, British Guyana, present-day Guyana, and, at the time of sinking, had recently completed a refurbishment 2 months earlier at a dry dock in Bridgetown, Barbados. She was owned and operated by the St. Kitts and Nevis Ministry of Communications, Works, and Transport, and constructed via an appropriation of $132,500 from the British government. Aside from being significantly overloaded on the day of the disaster, Christena left port with ballast tanks empty, a practice that had become standard procedure, to allow her to ride higher in the water and reduce complaints over waves soaking the decks, but which further compromised stability. On the afternoon of Saturday, August 1, 1970, the weekend of the annual Emancipation Day holiday, the ferry boat was overloaded on her final run of the day from St. Kitts to Nevis. The passenger capacity was 155, but that afternoon Christena had approximately 320 people on board. When the boat was half a mile off Nag's Head, a promontory at the southern tip of the southeastern peninsula of St. Kitts, and entering the rougher seas that line up with the channel between the two islands, the ferry boat took on water and sank. Only 91 people survived, and the great majority of those were people that had to be rescued. After the sinking, 57 bodies were retrieved and identified, 66 bodies were retrieved but were unidentifiable. A number of bodies were trapped inside the sunken wreckage, and these bodies were left in place. A decision was made to leave the boat and the entrapped bodies undisturbed, notes Arthur Onslin, captain of the Caribbean Queen, who was hired by the Commission of Inquiry to dive the site after August 1. A memorial to the disaster is located on the waterfront in Charlestown, the capital of Nevis. That memorial reads, "In loving memory of all those who lost their lives in the Christena disaster of August 1, 1970 RIP. A memorial headstone is located in the cemetery in the village of Bath on Nevis. Oswald Tyson is one of the survivors of the disaster. In his 2011 autobiography he describes Christena as a two-decker, partly enclosed craft. She was in poor repair and she always took on water in the lower level. If I had worn shoes, the water would have ruined them as it came up to my ankles." After the ferry boat sank, numerous injured people were in the water, and as Tyson explains, the blood attracted the sharks. They had never bothered anyone before, that I had heard of, but on this day the sharks came like monkeys to a mango tree. Another person is Joan Spencer, née David, who was 13 years old at the time. She recounted some of what transpired in the aftermath of the MV Christena running aground. Joan's mother, Dulcita David, was one of 91 people who survived, but her siblings, 3 sisters, and 2 brothers, were never seen again. It was a holiday weekend and as was the norm, people were leaving St. Kitts to travel to neighboring Nevis. Joan recalls going to Nevis the day before to take clothes and other items to her father's house in preparation for her mother's visit there on Saturday. She returned to St. Kitts the following morning and remembers it being a calm day at sea. Beautiful, by her description. She was expected to go back to Nevis with her mother and her siblings that Saturday afternoon, pick up something for the neighbor at a shop in Nevis and return to St. Kitts the same afternoon. When the bus arrived to take them to the pier, she hid, and because everyone was in a hurry to get to the boat, they did not bother to look for her. That afternoon at approximately 5 p.m. she was sitting outside with her other siblings and friends when her Aunt Cynthia told them the Christena sank and their mother, brothers and sisters had drowned. I looked at Auntie Cynthia like she was crazy. How could Mama be dead and she went to Nevis? She told us it came over on the radio that the Christena sank and everybody drowned. At this point, everybody's going crazy because now we had no mother. In the back of my head, I believed Mama could swim, so Mama would not drown. I believed that. But I started to wonder about my brothers and sisters, but Auntie Cynthia said everybody drowned. There was a lot of crying and people from all over the place started to come by us. The whole village of Keys was at our house. The whole village slept at our house Saturday night. All Sunday morning people were just sitting by the radio, listening. We didn't know what was happening. All we knew was that Mama was on the boat, Joan recalled. Her older sister Valerie and older brother Redhead went to town that Saturday night to find out what they could, but learned nothing. The Sunday morning they started to bring in the dead bodies. While we were listening to the radio, we heard them call Mama's name as a survivor. Joan said while they were happy and relieved to learn that her mother was alive, they were all heartbroken. To learn that her 5 siblings weren't as lucky. I was walking over dead bodies to see if I would find my little brothers and sisters. Older family members went to Basseterre hoping, at the very least, to recover the bodies of the 5 children. They were never found. That Monday night Dulcita David returned home, alone. It was a frightening moment. We kept wondering if anyone found one of the children. Joan said she returned to Basseterre the Tuesday morning, still hoping to find at least one of her brothers or sisters. I was walking over dead bodies to see if I would find my little brothers and sisters and I never saw not one of them. She said it was after midday on Tuesday or Wednesday when a boat came in and there was a lot of commotion. The premier at the time, Robert Bradshaw, was at the pier. He raised his hand and said, "Stop the search." I was a little child then and I will never forget that moment. He stopped the search because they had found the captain of the boat. From the time that boat came in, he told them not to search anymore and that's how they forget about my little brothers and sisters who were out there. It wasn't easy. For months I was afraid of Mama because she was mingling with dead people. But she would not let me go. Everywhere she went she took me. One time someone met her in town and called her a murderer. Mama never let that get the better of her, Joan said. I would never forget the day they had a court hearing and Mama took me with her and they questioned her over and over and the questioning sounded like they thought she killed the children. She broke down and started screaming to the top of her voice. There was a lawyer by the name of Clement Arundel who was her uncle's son and he was the one who said enough is enough. He took over and told them any questions they had they would have to ask him and he would relay it to her. Mama was a strong lady but she would think about it a lot. One time someone met her in town and called her a murderer. Mama never let that get the better of her. For us as children, me at the age of 13, it was a lot. It was very hard. We had 5 little brothers and sisters and they were just gone. We would never see them again and there wasn't even a body to bury. Dulcita David's story. In the years that followed, Dulcita often spoke about the tragedy that claimed the lives of 5 of her children. According to Joan, her mother's story never changed. She said the boat left and came back to the pier about 2 or 3 times. It kept going back for people because it was always someone the captain knew, so he kept turning back. The last time, he didn't turn back. The boat was loaded, so they were taking their time and going. By her recount, the water was calm and where she sat on the boat, she found that the water was coming inside the boat. She told the older children to get up from where they were sitting and hold on to the rail. At that time they were inside the boat, downstairs. The youngest child had just turned 2 the day before. Dulcita had her in her hands and a lady took the second youngest. The older 3 were holding on to the rail. The water kept coming in and the captain of the MV Christena ran downstairs and said, "Center the boat. Center the boat." The water kept coming in, wetting their feet. The captain shouted, "Stay where you are. Do not move. Center the boat." She said he said that 3 times and he made a move to go downstairs inside the engine room. As soon as he left, water rushed into the boat causing it to capsize. Dulcita found herself struggling and she started climbing back up on the Christena. While she was climbing up, a man was on top pulling her, so she used her foot to push him off her. She soon realized everybody was climbing on her and so she jumped over and dived beneath the water. When she came up she was swimming and saw a bag that had 3 breadfruits which she held on to. While swimming, she saw a lady who told her they were going to die. This lady could not swim, she was floating on her back. Dulcita offered her part of the bag with the breadfruit to hold on to. While they were there, a boat passed, then another one passed and the man on board looked at them and said, "You are doing good. Keep going. We will come back for you. We are going to see who else is back here to help." From the moment that boat left, the lady gave up hope and let go. Dulcita didn't see the lady again until the Sunday after at the Alexander Hospital. Turns out she didn't die. When a boat did pick her up, it was one of the chief mates from the Christena. who threw her a rope, but she was just too tired to hold on to the rope, so he jumped into the water and pushed her into the boat, and that was the moment she remembered she had 5 of her youngest children with her. Her mantra continued to be, "Lord, the spirit is willing but my flesh is weak." Every year around this time, "It hurts," Joan said. She said her mother found strength in her faith. It was like a burden on Mama. She worries about her children. In the end, she was strengthened. Her words used to be, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." When it first happened she was very weak, but in the next couple of weeks she began to regain her true self, and she began to realize that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. Joan said her mother epitomized remarkable strength, which only wavered when people would point her out and say, "See, the woman who killed her 5 children." 3 or 4 years after that tragedy at sea, Dulcida accepted Christ and, according to her daughter, she never looked back. "My father was very quiet all along, but he was with Mama every step of the way. He never spoke about what he felt." Joan's siblings who were among those lost in the MV Christena tragedy are Mavis David, 9 Christena David, 8 Joseph David, 7 Carl David, 3 Verna David, 2 Dulcida lived the rest of her life in service to God and her surviving children Joan Spencer, Valerie Mark, Leroy Redhead James and Jean Isaac. She died October 10, 2017, 4 days before her 80th